it will be the sanad that will have some weakness in it. And that is perfectly consistent with the pattern of Orthodox scholars of the past. So the next time someone says to you that a hadith is da'if, you can't use it, you need to ask them, tell me the different shades of da'if. Tell me the different principles behind da'if, and while you're at it, explain to me the different shades of hasan and sahih. And when their eyes glaze over and all these other things happen to them and they walk away, then alhamdulillah, your day is sorted. Because the thing is, that book it's 4 large volumes in large Arabic type, or it's 7 in small Arabic type. The Ihya Ulum al-Din, I say again, is one of the greatest books ever written by one of the ulama of this ummah. In all books of usul al-fiqh, all of them, even the Hanbalis, all of them, his name comes up. Because he is a master usuli, a master scholar of the principles and the undergirding roots of revealed law. And his name is quoted frequently. In Ihsan, his name is quoted frequently. His level is such within Shafi'i fiqh that he can give rulings inside of the school as an absolute mujtahid, but still within the Shafi'i school. That is his rank. And so we must not come to any false assumptions about Imam Abu Hamid Al-Ghazali rahimahullah. In 490 AH, Arsalan Arghun was killed. He had been head over Marwa, Balkh, Naysabur, and Tirmidh, but was killed by one of his own servants and was known for being oppressive. The Crusades began in 491 AH when the Franks reached Antioch in modern-day Turkey with an army of 1 million people, an increase from the 960,000 that they had possessed previously. Those who are interested may care to write down a hadith from the Sahih of Imam Bukhari, in which the Prophet ﷺ said, "You shall make a treaty with the people with yellow hair. And that treaty shall be broken, and they shall march against you with 80 flags. Under each flag is 12,000. You do the math, it's 960,000. This hadith was fulfilled at this point. Those who are interested may care to write it down. You don't have to. But if they would care to write it down, the hadith is where the Prophet ﷺ said, "You will make a treaty with the yellow-haired people, Bani Asfar, yellow-haired people. And they shall betray that treaty. They shall march against you under 80 flags. And under each flag is 12,000 troops." That is in the Sahih of Imam Bukhari. There's no dispute about its authenticity. Now, this crusade had come about from a papal bull by Pope Urban II only 2 years before, calling for a war of the cross. Rites of extreme unction and indulgences were granted to soldiers headed out when they believed that they would not return. Muslims attempted to defend themselves and the city of Antioch with their weapons, but were attacked and overwhelmed. A treaty was offered, but the Franks broke the treaty, followed the Muslims to Al-Mu'arra, and then slaughtered, maimed, and devastated the inhabitants. 100,000 Muslims were killed during that day. After 40 days, the Crusaders headed out to Homs, and the people surrendered based upon a Crusader promise of safety. The Franks then turned their swords towards Jerusalem. Now I want to make something clearer to you, and it is this. When Muslims refer to the European powers in the old writings, they call them the Franj. Franj is the English, the translation of Franj is Frank, because the Franj is from where in Arabic if you meet someone who speaks Arabic properly, when you look at the old dictionaries, our word for syphilis is al-afranjiyya, to become Frankish, to become from Bani Franj, because previous to then, we had no knowledge of syphilis. But from rape and from infection and from unsanitary invaders, the Muslims came to know about syphilis. Al-afranjiyya, from the Franj. Franj, the carriers of syphilis. Much the same way as the Onondaga described George Washington as Hanadagayas, the village burner, because they knew no other name to describe what these people were doing other than that. So the Franks, or the Franj in Arabic, came down, and it was the combined forces. Now what's happened is, because Arabic was corrupted in terms of from the educated masses besides the ulama, a lot of people don't make those connections, so they usually refer to places America or Europa. No, they're all Franj. In terms of their being kuffar, they're all Franj because they're coming from that upper area, and that landmass was Franj. Americans are Franj. The Canadians are Franj. Anyone coming from that Bani Asfar landmass is Franj. The Batiniya cult expanded its forces in 492 AH and infiltrated Isfahan and its surrounding hamlets. The Batiniya, their name in Arabic is also Hashishiyun, the hashish smokers. And you laugh, but it's something important that's going to come. Many of them were related to the Ismaili Shia in terms of their theology, in which they believed the external meaning of the Qur'an was worthless. And the only way that you can understand the Qur'an is to have an initiate, a ustad, teach you this. This is why when you meet ulama or sheikhs, they hate being called ustad. Because this title is coming from the Hashishiyun and these others. And it's also, ustad was also a title known by many of the ulama in the late 19th century for masons. And so the ulama hate being called ustad. You call an alim an ustad, a proper alim, and you see what happens if you can come back to that class, if he'll allow you in, if he'll teach you again. Because it's an insulting title. And people will sometimes, who are people of knowledge, they'll use it to denigrate someone or to insult them or to tease them lightly. They'll call them an ustad. It's used in Spanish today as a respectful form. When you talk to someone, you call them ustad, you. That's the plural form, whereas tú is you in an informal form. So it's come into Spanish. Now, these Hashishiyun, their most prolific leader, his name was Hassani Sabah, Hassan of the Dawn. He gathered followers with fanatical devotion because of, firstly, having them addicted to hashish. But it's not so much of what he did to them with the hashish, it's what he convinced them of after they were addicted. He would overdose them when they had their first taste of hashish. He would overdose them to where they were unconscious. After that, they would transport the person to a mountain fortress not far from Aleppo, where Hassani Sabah had huge gardens with women and young people dancing and running, and they had flute players playing music. And they would let the man that they had addicted to it, because it was a male fraternal order, they would let the male do whatever he wanted with the women. They had large pools of water that were composed of wine, large pools of water of milk, large pools of water of different types of spring mineral water and other things. When that time was finished, Hassan Sabah would order one of his troops to go back in and to give the person an overdose of hashish again. After the person passed out, they would be carried back down from the fortress into the lair of Hassan Sabah, and he would say to them, the place where you had been before was the Jannah, and I had the ability to bring you there. If you want to go back, you must do everything that I tell you. And people would follow them. And this is how the Hashishiyin gathered their strength. and gathered their forces. Because if you imagine someone that had been subjected to all these earthly pleasures and then told, and they were a simpleton, and they had a simple understanding that that was the paradise. And they took advantage of these people who were simpletons, people who had mental problems. It's no different today. Look at all of the people from the 19 hijackers of the 11th of September 2001 plane fraud. Zacarias Musawi, who was supposed to be the 20th hijacker, bipolar. Muhammad Atta, all those people were either social misfits or they had mental problems. The 7/7 bombers, the same thing. The 21/7, the people that did the bombing in Madrid, the same thing. Richard Reed, bipolar. They're all people who are either throwaways from society or people who are simpletons, who have mental issues, because they get preyed upon first. They don't come to someone like Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi or Imam Muwafiq al-Din or Sheikh Abdul Qadir Al-Jilani, come with us. No, because they know the order will be given for their heads to be chopped off. So they don't do that. And they know that those people won't be fooled. So Hassan Sabah began spreading his cult. And as it spread, there was even an assassination attempt on the life of the famous European traveler Marco Polo, where he suffered numerous injuries. They attempted to assassinate different Muslim high-ranking luminaries in their area. If you were a Muslim scholar and you mentioned them in your khutbah or your dars, and they came to know about it, they would send assassins. Imam Muwafiq al-Din was injured. Salah ad-Din Ayyubi was injured. There was a Khalifa killed because of it. There were numerous things that happened that the Hashishiyin did. Now, in 492, they infiltrated Isfahan and its surrounding hamlets. On the 22nd of Sha'ban, 492 AH, on a Friday morning, the Crusaders took Jerusalem. According to all historical sources, such as Ibn Athir, Ibn al-Imad, and others, those murdered while in al-Masjid al-Aqsa exceeded 70,000 on that day. Imam Ibn al-Jawzi mentioned that the Crusaders stormed the Dome of the Rock Shrine and took 46 gold candles around the rock, each candle worth 3,600 dirhams. They also took some 20 or more gold candles and a silver lantern worth more than all of that. So it is with understanding all of this that a Muslim should look carefully and think, do you have time to worry about what is going on with others who do not have your best interests at heart? We've heard about 50 a day, the 7th of July, 2005. 3,000 on the 11th of September, 2001. But one of the most significant events that shaped the Middle East for hundreds of years to come is largely not mentioned. Can you name a single religion that killed 100,000 people in one day besides this one? A single religion that in 2 days spread over a few weeks or a few months? Remember, they came to Antioch, 100,000. Jerusalem, 100,000. Can you name any religion that has that little of respect? What type of religion makes those type of people? But this onus is often put on us. Have we killed 100,000 in one day? We haven't. There may have been some from amongst us, but our civilization did not kill 100,000 in one day. Remember, the papal bull of Pope Urban II counts as ex-cathedra, where the Pope is speaking as a divine being. This is a civilization that killed 100,000 and then killed 100,000 on another day, before Ramadan even. 22nd of Sha'ban. It is this same civilization, the seeds that came from it, that killed 100 million in the North American continent. Now there are only 2 million left of all the tribes there. This same attitude that killed 86 million people under Joseph Stalin's reign. The same attitude that killed 55 million people in World War II. The same attitude that killed 37 million. The same attitude that killed 40 million Muslims between 1939 and 1949 in China under Mao Zedong. It's that civilization. Yeah. But even with that being said, there are some Muslims that have forgotten who they're with. You must remember you are a Muslim.